What if, in just a single catastrophic instant, every single person on Earth with a Y chromosome just, like, vanished? Gone. Not through a war, not a slow plague, but a sudden, terrifyingly precise biological event. Something that snuffs out half the world's mammalian life in, less time than it takes to blink.
It's the ultimate thought experiment, really, isn't it? It's a premise that immediately forces you to confront the deepest fault lines of our entire civilization.
Right.
We're talking about an instantaneous targeted biological purge of billions and the immediate absolute collapse of all the systems that keep us fed, powered, and well-governed.
Exactly. And that high concept scenario is the absolute foundation of the 2021 sci-fi thriller series, Y: The Last Man. So today we are diving deep into the source material around this show. We're going to be extracting the most fascinating nuggets about this fictional world, this post-apocalyptic structure, the survival mystery, the really profound questions it raises for you, the learner.
Our mission is to give you a comprehensive breakdown of this unique fictional disaster. We'll explore how society fractures when the Y chromosome is just eradicated overnight. We'll look at the impossible journey of the two last known male mammals and all the complex ideological conflicts that spring up among the 3 billion survivors.
And at the very heart of this global extinction event stands Yorick Brown. He is the last man of the title, an ordinary guy whose life was, frankly, pretty unremarkable moments before it all happened. And now he's instantly thrust into this world of chaos, desperate power struggles, and a scientific mystery that literally holds the key to humanity's future. And he's got his pet capuchin monkey, Ampersand, with him. They are the last two known male mammals on the entire planet.
The stakes are just astronomical. This deep dive is going to explore how the world even attempts to handle that instant demographic change and, why the survival of one fairly mediocre man and his monkey becomes the most urgent crisis in human history.
Okay, so let's unpack this high-stakes reality.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the event itself, because the sources are so incredibly specific about the mechanism, the timing, and that specificity is what makes it so uniquely terrifying.
It is. The source material describes it as happening suddenly. There's no warning, no explanation. And the mechanism is just horrifyingly precise. The instantaneous death of every mammal with a Y chromosome.
And that word instantaneous is everything.
It is. It's vital to grasp that. Civilization doesn't get a warning shot. It doesn't get a few days to prepare. It doesn't get to execute any emergency protocols. The sources really stress that the entire global network of human infrastructure collapsed not in months or weeks, but truly in minutes.
In minutes.
It's a systemic shock that is, it's just impossible to recover from gracefully.
And when you start to analyze that timescale, the implications for critical infrastructure are just staggering. It's not just the visible human tragedy of, men collapsing in the street.
No.
It's the immediate systemic breakdown of the very systems we rely on that really shatters the world.
Think about the loss of human control over highly complex, fast-moving machinery. The sources give us these really visceral examples. Commercial pilots, air traffic controllers, specialized engineers monitoring heavy machinery, gone.
So we see planes literally falling out of the sky.
Yes, planes crashing midair because the person flying a multi-ton piece of machinery instantly just ceased to exist. On the ground, you have to imagine train derailments, massive traffic pileups, catastrophic failures at any institution that requires immediate, specialized human intervention.
And the ripples just keep spreading out. Think about the energy sector.
Oh, absolutely.
Nuclear power plants, massive electrical grids, complex data centers. These things are not designed to run themselves indefinitely without constant, specialized human oversight.
And our modern infrastructure leans so heavily on that technical maintenance and monitoring, much of which, historically and in the show's world, was handled by people who just got wiped out.
So when the sources talk about infrastructure failure, they aren't just saying the lights go out.
No, it's so much worse. They are talking about potential meltdown scenarios, massive data loss, because the specialized knowledge base, the people who know how to fix it, vanished in a flash.
That rapid, total loss of expertise, it creates a logistical crisis on a global scale. In the first hour, the surviving governments are already reeling from mass casualties in their own ranks.
And they're dealing with two simultaneous existential problems. First, who's even still alive to lead? And second, how do you deal with the physical carnage and the rapid destabilization of every vital system at once?
And speaking of leadership, that political vacuum is immediate. If the president or the prime minister or the entire line of succession for, say, a global power happens to be primarily male,
Poof, that structure is instantly vaporized. The vacuum is instantaneous and is pervasive across every legislative, judicial, and executive branch globally. It demands that the surviving women, many of whom might have been in supporting roles or completely outside of politics, step up immediately to fill that void.
and that desperation, of course, leads to immediate power struggles.
Of course, in that initial phase, there's no time for diplomacy or consensus building. It's just a scramble for control over whatever remnants of government still function.
Meanwhile, the sheer scale of the demographic shift is just paralyzing. The sources really stress the magnitude of the loss. Every father, every brother, every son. It's a collective global trauma that exceeds anything humanity has ever experienced.
And it's a grief without an enemy, right?
Exactly. It's not just the loss of life, it's the loss of defining roles in society, in families. The entire concept of the nuclear family is instantly rewritten.
And crucially, this happens without any warning. For the characters living through it, there's no villain to blame, no bomb, no identifiable enemy. It's just an act of biological fate completely unknown to them.
That ambiguity is the foundation of the show's tension. It's what pushes some survivors toward, well, radicalization.
Right. They don't know if this was a random genetic glitch, a highly targeted attack they don't understand, or some wider cosmic event. They are perpetually operating in the dark, just dealing with the effects of an extinction event while trying to figure out what caused it.
And that unknown cause raises these constant, terrifying questions for the survivors. Like, if it happened once, could it happen again?
Could it target the X chromosome next?
Right. Are the surviving female mammals just waiting for the other shoe to drop? The suddenness and the specificity, only the Y chromosome make it a truly cold, scientific kind of horror. It fundamentally breaks our human expectation of what a disaster looks like.
It teaches the lesson that the greatest threats are often invisible. They're cellular, not grand and externally obvious. The collapse wasn't a slow burn or an invasion. It was an immediate global systemic failure driven by an instant unexplained biological eradication.
And that level of instantaneous collapse means the survivors didn't just inherit a world full of dead bodies, they immediately inherited an impossible, planet-sized logistical and political crisis.
Which leads us straight into the New World Order and the impossible survival of just 2 male mammals.
This is where the narrative pivots so dramatically. Amidst this global extinction, the sources confirm this. Miraculous, anomalous survival of 2 male mammals. Yorick Brown, an average 20-something man.
And Ampersand, his pet capuchin monkey.
Yeah.
They're the only known male survivors left alive on Earth.
The survival of these 2 specifically is the central riddle that drives the entire story. Why Yorick?
Right.
Why not some highly decorated soldier or an isolated genius or even a child? Why an ordinary, maybe even a little mediocre man living in Washington, D.C. and his specific pet monkey? The universe seemingly chose the most confusing, least prepared individual to carry the burden of hope.
And the sources emphasize that nobody knows the answer. Not the top scientists who would sacrifice anything to find out, not the desperate governments trying to stabilize things, and certainly not Yorick himself.
No, he's just trying to process the trauma and survive minute to minute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their survival becomes the highest value mystery on the planet.
But let's challenge that idea of him being mediocre. Isn't surviving an extinction event the single least mediocre thing a person can do?
Huh. That's a fair point.
Doesn't the source suggest his very ordinariness is what makes him such a confusing scientific anomaly? If he were a genetic experiment, his survival would make a kind of sense. But because he's just Yorick, it suggests the cause of the extinction was so random or so complex that it just happened to bypass the seemingly random pair.
That's a really key piece of the intellectual friction in the show. His prior mediocrity is only emphasized to highlight the astronomical, completely unearned importance that's thrust upon him.
And that importance immediately creates this impossible dual nature for Yorick's existence. On the one hand, he is unequivocally the single most valuable person on Earth.
Most valuable because he is the literal key to saving the human species from demographic collapse. If scientists can figure out why his cells, his biology, his Y chromosomes survived the event, they might be able to replicate that immunity.
Or, and this is the most critical part, figure out how to restart the reproductive process. The complexity of human society cannot be solved by a simple equation of removal. The problems of power, greed, and conflict are human problems, not exclusively male or female problems.
The removal of men simply shifts the arena and the actors, which leads to that central, uncomfortable thematic inquiry. If men disappeared tomorrow, would the world be better worse, or just different?
And the source material stresses that the answer is never simple. The new world is undoubtedly different, but it inherits the same human propensity for forming radicalized groups, for engaging in political conspiracies, and for fighting over resources. The power vacuum is the problem, and humanity, regardless of chromosome, remains inherently complex.
The series brilliantly avoids a simplistic answer, showing that the structures of civilization require both continuity and adaptation, and neither is easy when half the necessary elements are removed in an instant.
So this deep dive into why The Last Man really shows the incredible potential of high-concept science fiction to serve as a mirror to our own societal structures. We've reviewed the boldness of the premise, this instantaneous, unexplained extinction event targeting the Y chromosome,
The resulting political instability of the new female-led world, which is fractured by these warring factions.
and the existential mystery surrounding the sole survivor, Yorick Brown.
We've seen how the source material crafts a narrative that is equally a grueling survival thriller, a nuanced political drama revolving around President Brown, and a scientific quest to understand why one man and his monkey defied biological fate.
It's a tragic note for fans, however, that despite having such strong source material, such an ambitious premise, and really detailed storytelling, the series Y, The Last Man, was ultimately canceled after just one season. This left fans and us, in our study of the source material, without the full closure we craved regarding the ultimate fate of Yorick and Beth, the true agenda of Agent 355, and, most importantly, the scientific cause of the cataclysm itself.
Despite its unfinished nature, the show remains a key example of one of the boldest post-apocalyptic concepts ever brought to television. It used the apocalypse not just for action, but as a lens to examine societal dependencies, the politics of scarcity, and the inherent complexities of gender dynamics and power.
So what does this all mean for us, the learners, reading this incredible source material? The final provocative thought provided in the source material is chilling, and it perfectly encapsulates the lesson of this deep dive. The end of the world doesn't always come from massive, recognizable external threats like monsters or nuclear war or alien invasions.
Sometimes, it comes from an unseen, instantaneous biological event, something that happens at the cellular level without warning, that targets something fundamental to our very existence. It asks us to look inward at our own biology and outward at our own ecosystems for vulnerabilities we often ignore because they are too small, too scientific, or too abstract to inspire immediate panic.
Our sources remind us that the danger that ended this fictional world was unseen and misunderstood right up until the last second. It makes you wonder, what potential dangers present in our current world, perhaps a poorly understood virus, an evolving gene mutation, or a hidden environmental factor, are equally unseen, misunderstood, and waiting for their moment to strike with silent biological precision.
The greatest threats are often the ones we don't recognize until they've already fundamentally altered reality. That is the true, terrifying legacy of the Y chromosome event.
A compelling thought to hold on to as we finish this deep dive. Thank you for exploring this fascinating, unfinished world with us.